Use a close-up. Yeah, no. Okay, I think it's been a very difficult day for the country, for the Jewish people. I don't want to talk about it so much, but I think it's impossible to ignore. And, there have been many difficult days during this war. I think today is one that will, we will remember for a long time. We'll remember this as one of the defining moments, a day that reminds us just what evil that we are up against and the difference between good and bad and the difference between light and dark. It sounds cliche, but I think that with everything that we're feeling today and trying to navigate what to do with those emotions, so just causes us to think, to reinvigorate us, I guess, to add good, each one of us in our own way, to strengthen our resolve to fight against the evil that we're fighting against, and each one of us in our own way to contribute towards that. Again, there aren't very many words. Sometimes the best words that we have are the words we go back into the Tanakh and we look for inspiration. The parak that we just said, parak Pei Gimel and Tehillim, not by coincidence, that's the parak that was said today when the bodies came back and when they were given over to the IDF. So they held the ceremony in Gaza before they crossed the border. And the army chief rabbi read out that parak. That's the parak that is said at the military funerals. And if you read through that parak afterwards, you read through it again with a translation, you'll see that we've spoken about it once in the past, but it's really talking about everything that we're facing. And this is not new. We've had times like this in our history before, and Bezrat Hashem, we will come out and we'll have better days as well. So in the few minutes that we have before Maariv, I'm changing topic very abruptly. I was thinking earlier this week in terms of what to talk about, and they were expecting snow on Shabbat. So as we get later in the week, the models get a little bit better. Now I believe we're not expecting snow on Shabbat, we're expecting snow on Sunday. No? Monday. Sunday, Monday. Maybe not. Depends who you ask. Some people are expecting snow, others are not. Okay. But if there were to be snow on Shabbat, which is what I thought I was preparing. So it will be lishma. It's like those sugyot that you have in the Torah, and the Gemara in Sanhedrin talks about certain things that were certain things that are in the Torah. It says, well, lo hayav v'lo nivrad, these things would never happen. So why are they written? Drosh v'kabel schar. Okay, so if there's no snow on Shabbat, it's drosh v'kabel schar, and we'll get the limud will be lishma. But there are a lot of interesting questions which come up, and maybe it will happen again at a different time. But facing snow on Shabbat, the truth is, I would broadly categorized into two different groups. There are questions that we have regarding snow itself, on the snow itself, but also, and this may be applicable, even if there's not snow, but when it's very, very cold and there's a storm and there's certain issues that are raised, what happens if the power drops, the electricity, etc. So just talk briefly, we don't have so long. But the first question the poskim discuss is whether snow itself is muktzah. So the Gemara says that rain is not muktzah. The truth is, there are some authorities who think that snow is muktzah, but most think that it's not. It might be a question here of nolad or of molid. The sugya is, the Gemara, there's a Braita in Shabbat, and the Braita says, Ein meraskin, lo et hashelek v'lo et barad b'Shabbat, b'shvil she'azovu meimav. The Gemara says, you can't take snow or hail and to crush it up on Shabbat in order to extract the water, to turn it into liquid. That is going to be a problem. That's a problem of molid. However, says the Gemara, if you have the snow, whatever, you have it there in a cup, that's okay. So we spoke about this once when we discussed Bishul on Shabbat. We talk about ice and talk about things like that. But what you see from the Gemara, so it says, okay, you can't take the snow and crush it up. But the implication is that just in terms of handling it, if you're not going to crush it up or you're going to put it in a cup or something like that, that it would not be muktzah. And that seems to be the consensus of most of the poskim. The snow, you can walk on the snow, you can touch it, you can move it, etc. What about having a snow fight? What about making snowballs and snowmen, etc.? When we live in Yerushalayim, how often do we get snow? So if the only time you get snow is on Shabbat, and the only time that it settles is going to be on the Shabbat, you're going to lose the opportunity to make the snowman. Can you make the snowman on Shabbat? So again, the source for this is very interesting. The Rambam, the Gemara in Shabbat has discussion, but the Rambam has a discussion about making cheese on Shabbat, megaben. And where you would take this, what the Rambam says, is that chalav v'noten ba keva kadei lechavtzo alei ze chayav mishum toledet bolel she'alei yiflish akum min hachalav. ואם givno. If you turn it into cheese, asal gvina, chayav mishum boneh. שכל המקבץ חלק על חלק ודבק הכל עד שיעשו גוף אחד, הרי זה דומה לבניין. You take the different parts and you put it all together. That's what he said, מקבץ חלק על חלק, taking one part and pushing them together and forming the block of cheese. That is going to be an isur of boneh. So the poskim say that this boneh it's going to be an isur d'Rabbanan because it's not a permanent. It's also not l'chubal karka. It's not a permanent sort of type of building, but it is the melacha of building. So the question is, would the same thing apply? The same way when you put these parts of the cheese together, would that apply to the snow as well? And there could be reason to make a distinction, but generally accepted that we say the same thing. You're taking different bits of snow, you're pushing them together, you're clumping them together to make your snowballs, to make your snowman, to make your whatever it is, let your imagination run wild, but that's all that you can do on Shabbat, because you can't actually build it. That would be an Isur D'Rabbanan. If you already have the snowballs prepared from before Shlomo Zalman writes, it's in the Shema Shabbat Kilchata. If you have the snowballs prepared from Erev Shabbat, then you're allowed to have a snow fight, and then you can throw them. That's okay. But in order to construct them, that would be a problem. And then there's a few other issues, but one other thing which might apply in times of rain as well is if you were walking outside and your coat, you got stuck in the snow or in the rain and your coat is full of snow, when you walk home, can you take it and can you hang it up and can you shake it off, etc.? So what's the problem? The problem with shaking off a coat or shaking off a garment could be an issue of kibbutz, could be an issue of laundering. That's what the Shulchan Aruch, Siman Shin Bet tells us. The mena'er talit chadasha shchora min hatal she'aleh chayav shene'ur yafeh ela kmo kibbutz. If you shake out your garment from the towel, from the dew that's on it, that would be a problem of kibbutz. Rather, Ramai adds, says, same thing if you have rain, you have a lot of water, to shake out the garment to get it dry, that would be a problem on Shabbat. So the Biur Halacha says, we just talk about the dew. He says, so it would be the same thing for snow. He says, if the snow hasn't melted at all and it's just kind of sitting on top of the garment and you're just very, very lightly shaking it out so it falls off, that would be okay. But if it's already getting wet and it's already part of it, the other thing which one has to be careful about is if you take off your jacket, even if you don't shake it out, and this applies very much in the rain as well. So sometimes during the week, you come home and the jacket is wet or whatever, you want to put it over the radiator to dry. On Shabbat, that's completely forbidden because you're taking the water and you are putting it over the radiator. You are essentially cooking the water. So that would be a problem. And we'll just say, in terms of another couple of points of trade, but what happens if there's a snowstorm or not a snowstorm, a storm, and the electricity goes out? That is a big sugya. Are you allowed to turn the electricity back on Shabbat? So that generally speaking, we know that any malacha that you can't do yourself, you can't ask a non-Jew to do on Shabbat either. There are obviously exceptions to the rule, and a situation like this where it's very, very cold would be an exception. The Gemara says, "Akol cholin etzel tzina." Right? If it's very, very cold, you need the electricity to keep one warm. Certainly, to ask a non-Jew in such a situation to come and to turn the electricity back on, that would be permitted. If it is in freezing conditions and there aren't any non-Jews around, if you have young children at home, you have babies, or you have very old people who are vulnerable, who are sick, etc. So then there is what to discuss in terms of maybe doing it with a shinai or whatever. That's an extenuating circumstance. But generally speaking, those kind of situations, the best course of action would be to ask a non-Jew. Rabbi Chananya ben Akasha Omer, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Zakot Yisrael, Yifach Kabbalah Torah Mitzvot, Shnei Madra Echvetz Man Tzidko,